When Morrowind launched in 2002, players had the chance to explore a unique world that blended Egyptian, East Asian, and Western medieval aesthetics, complete with giant mushrooms, towering insects, and intricate lore rooted in centuries of in-game history. Yet, as memorable as its landscape and gameplay were, nothing left more of an impact on the Elder Scrolls franchise than Morrowind's soundtrack, particularly its title theme. In the RPG genre, a title theme foreshadows the kind of world you're stepping into, and ideally embodies the stories embedded within it. Nerevar Rising, aka the Morrowind theme, does this brilliantly, using strings, harp, brass, flute, and an iconic melody that at this point is considered the de facto Elder Scrolls theme. But it all starts with the bass drum. Here is where we begin our in-depth analysis on musical devices and music theory. When you load into Morrowind's title screen, the bass drum immediately grabs your attention with a forceful entrance. It's drenched in so much reverb that it seems as if you're standing inside a massive cathedral. As a musical device, the bass drum gives both the music itself and the world you're about to enter a sense of weight and importance. It's like an ominous warning, or a warning that the world you're about to enter is haunted by serious challenges, mysteries, and tragedies. Some fans describe the bass drum as a beating heart, drawing parallels to the Heart of Lorkhan, which, if you don't know, is a central plot device in Morrowind's storyline. If you ask me, this analogy is perfect because the bass drum maintains a steady cadence throughout the theme, which keeps the music, or if you will, the story, going. The sense of gravity underpinned by the bass drum seems more potent after starting a new save and watching the opening cinematic. Here, players reach the first moments of gameplay, and the title theme continues as we're greeted by Giab, a fellow prisoner who says,
"Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming. What's your name?"
Even in this mundane moment of gameplay, the music underpins everything with a sense of weight that gives players the feeling they're witnessing the first humble moments of a profound story. Another significant aspect of the bass drum is its placement in the track. It's the first and last instrument we hear in Morrowind's title theme. Everything else, like the strings, brass, and woodwinds, is, for lack of a better term, sandwiched in between. From a musical standpoint, these elements seem to serve as contrasting forces. The lush melodic material, which we'll cover shortly, can represent the beauty of the physical world, while the bass drum stands as a bleak reminder of the troubles within it. This same musical device also appears in Skyrim's title theme. Although the tone of Skyrim's theme is perhaps more masculine or primal, the bass drum is still the first and last instrument we hear. And so it can be argued that both tracks use the bass drum as a method of producing conflicting emotional cues that represent different aspects of the game world. What comes next after this bass drum solo is the first phrase of the main theme. This brings us to part 2, where we discuss how the arrangement of the theme itself is developed. After the bass drum solo, 5 instruments join in: flute, horn, trombone, harp, and violas. These 3 are assigned to the main theme. If you've played Morrowind or any Elder Scrolls game thereafter, you'll instantly recognize this melody. Jeremy's Soule reuses this melody in Oblivion, although this time it's led by the brass section. In Skyrim, it appears as a horn solo. And in Elder Scrolls Online, it returns yet again. This is how Morrowind's theme has come to function as a musical device within the Elder Scrolls universe. Despite the series' varied aesthetics, timelines, and lore, the melody is a constant that gives each title the same musical identity. With that in mind, let's shift our focus back to the arrangement. While both flute, horn, and harp play the main theme, both viola and trombone take on a supporting role. Viola contributes by playing a faint, staccato rhythmic pattern. Meanwhile, trombone provides a counter melody to fill out both the harmony and the texture in the upper mid-range. To appreciate how these two contribute, let's hear the melody alone once more, then we'll listen to the full orchestration. As we approach the second phrase of the main theme, we hear our first interjection from the French horn. These kind of melodic fragments appear throughout the track, and they're like brief moments of counterpoint that outline the primary melody's phrase structure while filling in the harmony. The next instrument that joins in is the contrabass. This is clearly a supporting role, as its rhythmic structure connects smoothly to the bass drum and viola patterns. Now let's listen to this phrase with the full orchestration. Up next, the track proceeds to the final phrase of the first section using flute and harp. Here, the contour of the melody reaches its peak on a high E flat, descending all the way down to F, and eventually C to conclude the first section. This is another phrase from Morrowind's theme that appears in Skyrim's theme, although it's sung by a male chorus. Beneath this closing phrase, a rising chord progression emerges in the low strings and brass, moving from C minor to E flat, A flat, and B flat. This rising motion contrasts nicely with the descending contour of the main melody. It also fills out the orchestration's texture and subtly ramps up the intensity to give the music more momentum. Next, this rising chord progression leads to the first two-measure transition, and the harmony shifts to an F power chord. Now that we've broken down the individual parts of the first section, let's hear it in full. As you listen, pay attention to how each element comes together to shape the track's overall tone. So now that we've listened to the first section, let's discuss how harmony, form, and orchestration evolve throughout the rest of the track. Overall, Morrowind's title theme consists of 3 sections, each separated by a 2-bar transition. While the first section gradually layers the instrumentation, it also introduces a repeating harmonic framework. Basically, every 4-bar phrase begins with C minor and E flat, but the following 2 chords are usually varied either by chord order or other subtle changes. For example, the second 4-bar phrase in section 1 features C minor, E flat, B flat, and A flat. The 4th phrase is varied by chord order, as A flat appears before B flat. These chord patterns all fit well within the C natural minor scale. This choice of natural minor, rather than its harmonic or melodic minor variant, is quite common in film and music for games. Since it avoids the leading tone, the tonality feels more open-ended and ambiguous, with a kind of wandering quality that fits perfectly with a non-linear, open-ended adventure like Morrowind. The next two sections use much of the same material, but what sets them apart is their orchestration. For example, section 1 assigns the main theme to horn, flute, and harp, but in the second section, violins play the melody in octaves, making the theme more prominent and lyrical. We see another instance of a counter melody in trombone, and another interjection from the horn. Lastly, we have the third and final section of the track. This is when the arrangement is most lively and energetic. The instruments that contribute to this liveliness the most are the violins, bass drum, and brass. The violins restate the main theme in a higher octave, giving it a more radiant sound with a heroic tone. Meanwhile, the bass drum adds momentum with its most active rhythmic figure. What I think really adds to the emotional intensity the most here is brass. Here, both the horn and trombone play counter melodies that really add power to the texture. To me, this clearly gives the section a triumphant quality. Let's first listen to the brass on its own, and then the full orchestration. Next, we arrive at the final transition, where both the strings and brass sound an F power chord that quickly decays into a whisper. A moment later, the viola echoes a melodic fragment that had just appeared moments ago. This echo leads us into the final moments of the track, where the ominous bass drum rhythm from the opening returns, now underpinned by a C minor chord voiced in the strings and brass. And with that, we reach the end of our analysis. But before we close, I want to take a step back and look at how Morrowind's theme tells a story all on its own. For this video, I transcribed the original theme as accurately as I could manage. This meant listening to short phrases, as well as the entire track, many times over. And the more I listened to it, the more I felt the music itself tells the story of Morrowind. Structurally, it resembles a 3-act narrative, or even a triptych in visual art, a work divided into 3 panels, sometimes to represent a story. The first section feels humble, with a sense of restraint, much like the player's arrival as a prisoner in a strange, unfamiliar place. By the time we reach the third and final section, the piece has reached its most radiant, expressive, and triumphant state, a fitting musical reflection of the player's transformation into the hero Morrowind has been waiting for. That theme of going from obscurity to destiny is echoed in the music itself. The music doesn't just support Morrowind's narrative, it truly seems to embody this sense of going from prisoner to prophecy, or obscurity to destiny.